This is a mandated training, annual mandated training now for HCS people. So every year, what we used to do in the past is send out an email that had this PowerPoint and had you guys sign that you acknowledge that you saw the PowerPoint and you trained and you did it. But this is training that should be going on an annual basis. All right, how many people know what abuse and neglect and exploitation is? As caregivers, paid caregivers, whether you're related or not, you are responsible, paid caregivers of the state of Texas in a sense, because that's where the Medicaid money, you're responsible for calling in abuse and neglect and exploitation that you see not only to maybe your loved one, if you see it to somebody else going out in the community or in a facility or in a group home, what have you, that when that happens, it still falls on me because I'm the provider, but I was not the person who did the neglect or whatever it was. So they're kind of have to handle it differently. So there's always very unique cases where there's certain numbers you should be calling. There's certain things that, well, it's not really Rudy and I care, but it's them, but this is an I care client. There's all kinds of gray area when it comes into that. But that's just one of the latest ones we're dealing with. It does happen. If you see it, I'm going to give your CFC Star Plus people the same parameter that we have as HCS. If you suspect abuse, neglect, and exploitation, how long, shout it if you want, you know the answer. How long is it do you have to call and notify the number? Someone said it back there. 1 hour. Bonk. It is not 24 hours for HCS. It is not 24 hours. But I want my CFC Star Plus people to keep that hour in there. We'll never be wrong with 1 hour. If you suspect abuse, neglect, and exploitation, we will not be wrong if you answer 1 hour. So it's always 1 hour, and that's the answer you're supposed to give, because you will be asked that question by a state auditor, state surveyor, when you do get chosen in a state survey. So let's go through. One of the new things about abuse, neglect, and exploitation are identifying risk factors of abuse and neglect and exploitation. This is very prevalent in group home settings when you get what's called provider or staff burnout. Especially during COVID, some of these staff were working over 24 hours because they couldn't find staff to cover the shifts. That's a huge risk factor when you're getting that. You're having to work with 3 people in a group home by yourself, 24 hours straight. Don't you get frustrated after a while? And you're calling your employer, I need relief. Well, can you just stay another 2 or 3 hours? Yeah, that's a huge risk factor. Staff burnout. Another risk factor, think of it, it's pretty common sense. You're stressed at home. You have issues going on at home that might get you more stressed, that you might lash out, yell at, somebody, hey, John, why did you do this? And some people don't realize yelling at an individual with IDD is a form of verbal abuse, because they may not comprehend that they shouldn't be doing what you really want them to do. So you got to be kind of careful. I know we're mom and dads, a lot of us are. My mom yelled at me, and she still does. But I'm able to, I know why she's yelling at me, basically. So, and they may not. So that is part of verbal abuse. But there's several risk factors. Any other risk factors that you can think of that might get someone to kind of go over the edge and maybe abuse by even yelling? Just being stressed out. Like I said, staff burnout. Even mom and dads, do you guys burn out?
Yes.
Yeah. So identifying that and handing off hey, I need a break. Maybe getting somebody to come over and help you and just do that. When you identify, we want to reduce risk factors for sure. Okay. Types of abuse and neglect. There is abuse, and abuse comes in different formats. I just said one, verbal. The other one is emotional. And a lot of people don't think of emotional abuses, but emotional abuse, you know, I always say this, if you have a partner, you do some emotional abuse back and forth, your spouse and your husband, hey, you know, and make them feel not so great by whatever you say. But here's an example of emotional abuse that we in our community that I've seen, especially in group homes, is that hey, if you don't behave, I'm going to send you back to the state living center. That you might not be yelling at that person, but you just instilled in that person that they think they're going to go back and probably didn't have a good time at the state living center. Do you think they did? Yeah, and they've all of a sudden shut down or like, and they're scared and they're nervous. If you don't behave, I'm calling the cops. I guess have heard that a lot. I used to be a state surveyor, for those of you who didn't know. I used to hear all of these stories. Was the intent that you really were calling? Were they doing anything harming somebody or harming somebody else, themselves or somebody else? No, but you just told them that because that was a way of a technique to calm them down. But now they're in the corner hiding in the closet because they think the cops are coming. Those are perfect examples of emotional abuse. Try not to get yourself caught doing that. I know sometimes we kind of say things like, oh, out of frustration. Try not to do that. That's emotional abuse. Physical abuse, self-explanatory. Touching, hitting, pulling hair, pushing. That's physical abuse. Sexual abuse. If you see any sexual abuse, the authorities will be called. They will be notified. Once you call that 1-800 number, the cops will probably get there before the investigator. But that is one we do not play with at all. So those are the abuse. Am I missing any? Am I missing one at all? An abuse on the abuse category.
Oh, yeah, financial.
Okay.
Financial. That's sexual.
That's in a sense we're going to get there. It's called something else. The next thing is neglect. So and so has been left in his diaper for 24 hours. They've been wearing the same clothes for the past 3 days. They haven't been bathed for days either. Neglect is one thing I will say, neglect is only when it's done purposefully. You're purposely not doing that because you just don't feel like dealing with the situation or with the person. If it's not considered neglect because maybe I'm in the hospital and my loved one might be not getting fed on time when he's supposed to because someone else is taking care of them. That's different, But it's when you purposely do something, not pay attention, or provide what needs to be provided to that individual. Okay. Last one is exploitation. Here's where we get to finances. Finances is an easy one where you can get exploited. Let me tell you a story. When I was a case manager in San Antonio, you know how hot it gets in San Antonio just as here. It's tax time. Picture this. Who do you see in the corners during tax time? You see the Statue of Liberty guy? You see the people twisting all of that stuff, and stuff like that. Sometimes there was a restaurant it wasn't tax time, but those individuals, you take a look at them, and sometimes you're thinking, do they really want to be doing this? There might be something going on there, and that's just my perception. But they might be getting paid. They might not be getting paid. Who knows what the deal is there? But I did have an individual who got hired as a dishwasher at a local restaurant. Was up the street from the office from where I worked, and I was his case manager. And they had some type of bear guy outside trying to get people to come into the restaurant and eat. A mascot kind of guy. And I'm like, it's 90 degrees outside. Who's going to be in that whole getup and the whole 90 degrees and stuff? God, that's crazy. They couldn't pay me $1 million to do that. I get to the office. Hours later, my client walks in that I'm a case manager from, and he's drenched. He's drenched. I'm like, wow. I'm like, why? He could talk. His name was Nathan. Nathan, why you so wet? What's going on? He goes, oh, I was in the bear outfit all day today. I said, what? Oh, you're in the bear outfit? Why? Well, I've been in the bear outfit since I started. I said, they hired you to wash dishes. Not, that's what you got hired for. Well, I only washed dishes like the first or second day, and they told me I wasn't good enough, so they put me in the bear outfit outside. Deep, 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 deep. Yeah, and it was a TAWC placement, the Texas Workforce. I first called them first. I said, this is not why this guy got hired. He does not, I'm sure if it was me or you wouldn't have went and decided you wanted to be in that bear outfit in 90-degree weather. So that's a form of exploitation because they don't make that connection. You know, if I ask John, wash my car. Oh yeah, I'll wash your car. He washes my car and I give him $1. But he gets $1 and he's so happy because I gave him $1 and I got a car that's just freshly washed. That's exploitation. Any questions about exploitation? Abuse or neglect? Now the numbers. A number. You have how long to call it in when you see this?
1 hour. What's 24 hours? That's something.
There's never been 24 hours if you've been my HCS host home provider. But right now for HCS and Texas Home Living, sorry, 1-800-647-7418. And it used to be called the Department of Family Protective Services in HCS and HCS and Texas Home Living. Now it's called Provider Investigations. But the website is www.txabusehotline.org. www.txabusehotline.org. That is a streamlined one. So if you're CFC Star Plus or your HCS, they'll figure it out when they get the report. And you do need to type in names, information. It'll ask you. You are anonymous unless you don't want to be. You can do anonymous. So once again, you might think, if you think that your loved one's being abused, by all means, as a care provider, call it in. You have 1 hour, right? If you see someone else that you know that has a disability being abused, even my mom and dad, they're elderly. It's the same thing. Nursing homes. You heard the horror stories. Any of that. You've been trained. You're a care attendant. You have the obligation to call it in. Okay, HCS people. If your client is coming in from an ISS facility or out in the community or in care of somebody else and they're coming in soiled or they're coming in with a bruise and you know, I didn't do that. Incident report. Incident report, incident report. Or if they fell and they got a bruise and then you send them to the ISS facility or Dayhab, guess who they're going to probably call? Me first, I hope. But I should already know this. So I have an answer to them to say, oh yeah, he fell in the morning because Lisa called me and told me he fell in the morning. That's where that bruise came from. Incident report. Send it to me. Inform me, first of all, or Merlinda. And then, you can wait later to do an incident report. But you always want to make sure if there's any incident or accident that injures the person you're caring for, that you let us know. Because if they go off and somebody else sees that they're injured or something like that, they may call an abuse and neglect or exploitation against you, thinking that you might have done it because there's no explanation or origin to it. So make sure we're aware of it so I can answer them. And we can have incident reports. They do ask when they do these investigations, send me the incident reports, send me any correspondence that you may have for to make sure our evidence that you may have that your care attendant didn't do this. And sometimes I have it right here. What I don't want to do is call and say, What happened? Because it's been called in. It's not a good feeling. No, and then for you to tell me, oh, this happened. Why didn't you tell me 3 days ago? Because now someone just called it in. And then it seems like you're covering something up. You don't want to get in that situation. It doesn't look good for an investigator at all. And I feel, there's a word I say, I have egg on my face. Ever heard that term? Yeah, I don't like that feeling. So this is what this training is for. So make sure you have incident reports. Even if you, incident reports, CFC Star Plus people, if you want incident reports, just if you see something or something happens, they can, I can accumulate those and have them, because I've only had one abuse, neglect, and exploitation called in on a CFC Star Plus person. And it was called in by a hospital of one of the client, that the doctor suspected that they weren't getting their meds right or something like that. And because we don't have a lot of paper trail in CFC Star Plus, we just do a 10-minute care clocking in, and you guys don't even give me anything in writing except for your personnel stuff, and what now is training. I don't even have anything say, hey, I don't know whether the meds were given right or not. We don't regulate that. And they had a very hard time in deciphering why that wasn't the case if it's a CFC Star Plus client. Any questions on abuse and neglect and exploitation?